Biden is somebody who is being set up for being the next president of the United States. And we have seen the media world protecting him at every opportunity. We've had constant stream of allegations that he's been involved in financial malpractice. We've covered ourselves the kind of things he's been up to in Ukraine and his son's been up to in Ukraine. We now have a story. We now have not a story. We now have a claim from a woman who claims that she was sexually molested by him. This has been poo-pooed and ignored by the media. And now we have corroboration. And let's be very clear, this is corroboration. It seems that her mother, and it seems it was indeed her mother, telephoned
That's 100%.
It's 100%.
Open and shut, it's done.
Telephoned Larry King in 1993 and basically was complaining about it. I mean, that's the only way one can construe it. So that shows that this story is not a recent invention. This individual has clearly, got a long history of complaining about this. She complained about it to her family, and her family, her mother, did the huge step of contacting and being televised by Larry King. I mean, that's not a small thing to do. That's not at all a small thing to do. So I think this is a big story. And of course, compare that with the way allegations against other people who are Republicans are treated. I mean, we all remember Dr. Ford and Brett Kavanaugh, and how Brett Kavanaugh's life was made absolutely terrible, and his family's life was made absolutely terrible, and there was no corroboration for that story at all. Here we have a story where there is clear corroboration. We also have a string of other people coming along and saying that, they've been touched, or all kinds of things had happened with Creepy Joe. We had some of them very young, and of course the media is trying to bury this. I mean, if this is not media manipulation, what else is? If you want to make a big issue of sexual harassment by political leaders, and I happen to think, if it's verified, so you should. If you want to do that, well, this is a big story to cover. I would point out that in the 2016 election, they tried to do the same thing with Donald Trump. You remember that tape recording they published?
Yeah, tape recording. Yeah, that was a tape recording, and that was between Trump and Billy Bush, and they were hanging out in, I guess, a bus or a van. Exactly. And they were just, talking BS, talking smack. But
if this had been a case of a woman making an allegation against Donald Trump, and video turning up of the mother of the woman contacting Larry King years before, this would have been the top news story today in the United States. I can assure you. This, because it's Joe Biden, it's not been covered.
Yeah, let's not forget that NBC went out of their way to dig up that tape against Trump. They went out of their way, and then they fired Billy Bush as well. They got rid of him. But the Biden thing is comes as no surprise to me.
No,
I mean, don't let your eyes deceive you.
No.
We all have seen the pictures of Creepy Joe. We all see how he touches and grabs and smells not only women, but children.
Yes, I know.
And no one talks about it.
I know.
No one mentions it. It is, creepy is not even the right word. It's wrong. It's simply wrong. If that was my wife or girlfriend or daughter, and I saw anyone, I don't care who it was, touching them like that, there would be hell to pay.
Absolutely. And the same from me as well, by the way. I mean, if anybody treated my wife like that, there would definitely be
the pictures are there. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to look at those pictures and say, gee, what the hell is this guy doing?
No.
Get your hands off.
I know.
And now you have this story.
Yes.
And it's like you said, Alexander, it's completely corroborated. I mean, they've confirmed that the phone call was coming from the exact location in California where Tara Reade's mother was at the time. Everything's been completely checked and double checked by the journalists. I believe The Intercept they were the ones that broke this story, and they dotted all their I's and crossed all their T's, and then they came out with the story.
And they're a left-wing site,
right,
by the way.
And they're a left-wing, and from what I understand, I was looking at a video from Tim Pool, and he did a video on this story as well. And his own research shows that CNN, because it was Larry King's show on CNN at the time, shows that CNN has now been going back into their archives, and they've been scraping that video and doing away with it. They're erasing the evidence of that video now. And I've also heard that Facebook is also banning any mention of Creepy Joe and Tara Reade. So all these people that were all about the Me Too movement, when it was targeted at Trump or Kavanaugh, have now all of a sudden come to bury it when you're dealing with Creepy Joe. And the photos are all there about Creepy Joe. And the evidence is all there about Hunter Biden and Ukraine. Let's not forget the suffering and death and chaos that Joe Biden caused in Ukraine. And who was Joe Biden's boss?
Barack Obama.
Absolutely. What does that tell you about Obama?
Who is endorsing him now for the presidency, and whom, as we well know, phoned up all the various other Democrats, all the Democrat challengers, and got them to line up behind Biden, and who basically dished Bernie Sanders. So, I mean, to be honest, it's terrible. And can I just say, the media in Britain are not touching this story. The media in Britain are just—
they've been ordered not to touch it.
Well, indeed, absolutely. I mean, they've been ordered to. I mean, absolutely. I mean, they're not touching it. They're not reporting it. I haven't seen it anywhere. And despite the fact, as I said, that The Intercept, because it is a journal which a lot of people in the political world and the media world in Britain read. So there's no question about them not knowing about this story. They absolutely know about the story, but like in the United States, they're keeping it secret. And as for the Me Too movement, all I can say about them is that clearly they are not interested in some victims, some women who are victims. They're only interested in, themselves ultimately. I mean, it's been the mask on Me Too has just dropped. We've already discussed how, with Epstein, they took no interest in that, and obviously they're protecting Biden too.
Yeah, they took no interest in Epstein. The whole Me Too thing, the whole hashtag Me Too, was conjured up by a PR firm in California. That's also been confirmed. That wasn't some spontaneous thing. That was planned. And I'll even take it further, and then we'll move on to Trump and the disinfectant stuff, which anyway, the whole Me Too thing and the whole going after Weinstein. That guy was a horrible person as well. But the way I look at it, usually in those types of scenarios, when they go after someone big like Weinstein, who was a big guy, a top guy in Hollywood, but he wasn't one of the top demons in Hollywood, I think it was all a controlled burn. They needed to get someone Me Too'd, someone, out in front, make an example of him. And then the top guys that are doing the real nasty stuff. Yes. And I mean, real Epstein-like nasty stuff, they skate away.
Well, that's right.
Everyone's looking in the Weinstein direction.
I absolutely agree. Can I just say, I mean, that I endorse what you say about Weinstein. He's an absolutely terrible man who did terrible things, but he's certainly not the only one who's done those things. And I'm not saying that Biden is quite as, is on the scale of Weinstein, but, who knows? But the point I'm trying to make about Biden is that if you are running a Me Too movement, and you now have accumulating evidence that the Democratic Party's candidate for the presidency has been involved in sexual harassment and sexual molestation, and it's not just one allegation; we have an accumulation of them, and now we have contemporaneous corroboration of perhaps the most serious one, then I mean, you ought to be out there. You ought to be saying this man is not fit to be president of the United States. If you're not saying that, then you're not serious about what you say you are. And that, I have to say, is my summary view of the Me Too movement. They're not serious about what they are. They are basically
a political weapon.
A political weapon, a tool.
A political weapon. And it's going